my channel has been demonetized several times, and it's always usually because of anime, particularly Demon Slayer. And I've talked with them. It's like it's a matter of control, but they also realize that there's a huge international market for this sort of stuff. But for them, regulation is key. Korea has that regulation covered a lot more. When I did reactions to K-pop music, I wasn't making anything off of it. I wasn't making a dime off of it because every video that I would upload immediately was claimed by a Korean music company. So they had that, they're so familiar with the way this stuff works, they get it regulated, where I think there is a bit of a slow growth with Japan understanding how international things work a lot more, that they rather just be like, oh, it's so annoying, we'll just completely block everything and let our American or international distributors take care of that. So it's a really interesting concept, but who knows what is the best way for that to work out, right? Because let me put it this way. Across the Spider-Verse, which is the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, all that. That's from Sony, a Japanese company, but it's in tune with Marvel, which is an American license. This movie came out generally almost on time in Japan, released everywhere, huge satisfaction. Everybody enjoyed this movie. Half the people I talked to who enjoyed the movie illegally downloaded it. When, they live in Japan, you could have gone somewhere and, you could have just watched it in the theater. They're like, nah, they just take it for granted at that point. And that's a huge fear. Animation is not cheap, as I'm sure you know. And, Sony is putting in all this money to produce these full feature-length films, animated, and people just download it illegally because it's easily accessible. That's the kind of regulation that keeps Sony, Japanese companies, up at night. Is like, oh, well, if we don't regulate it hardcore, then people are going to just illegally download it, because it's so easily accessible. So I get that point, You
just brought up a couple of interesting points that I want to dive into a little bit more. But the first one would be, you mentioned you dealt with a Japanese company like Toho. So Toho is a movie production company that dates back to, I think, the post-war era, and that also owns a chain of cinemas.
Correct.
So Toho cinemas are very popular.
Among animation as well, and then there's also Toei Animation, a lot of subsidiaries. Yeah.
So what's the process like dealing with a Japanese company like Toho when you get contacted by them, or you're kind of discussing?
They don't contact me. I contact them first and foremost. It takes a lot of investigating and figuring out who I can talk to, and sometimes I end up with dead ends, right? But I've also had to write legal notices in Japanese because on top of the studios themselves, then there's like a sub factor of just fans that will go around shutting content down on YouTube, like actual just fans. One of them is actually in Osaka, who used to go around to all the different videos and just shut down stuff.
A vigilante.
Yeah, they were vigilantes, like the ultimate simps or something for these companies going around, and I've had to send legal notices to these companies because I'm like, you're not even the actual company. Why are you taking down my videos like that? So I've sent them in Japanese. And then after that, everything gets lifted because I'm like, yo, these scare tactics ain't going to work on me. So,
Are those companies kind of open to discussion where you can interact with them, you can explain the problem, they will respond?
In terms of the vigilantes, they're not the company.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to waste my time talking with them because they're just kind of fanatics that are trying to protect and white knight these products. But I'm like, look, you don't even know if the actual company themselves are okay with this or not. They might actually be ecstatic that people are interested in it. So it's not worth my time to deal with that. A good example is AMC. One of my biggest series that I ever covered was The Walking Dead. Walking Dead is published by Skybound Entertainment, but it's distributed and broadcasted by AMC, American Movie Channel, something like that. I would be completely whitelisted by Skybound. They were so cool with me. They actually would go and take my reactions and other people's reactions and make weekly compilations to that on their YouTube channel. And they loved it. Everybody was huge with it. But AMC hated it. And so the AMC would go around tagging people's channels, pulling them down, things like that. So there was a huge internal situation, with AMC and Skybound about how they're going to deal with reactions and things like that. Eventually, Skybound won that one, but it was just the craziest thing sometimes. Like, it was quite interesting. Yeah.
And all those companies, as you mentioned earlier, basically are doing this because they're worried about illegal downloads. They're worried about basically losing a share of the profit from the investments they do into producing a movie.
Correct. And distribution as well.
And distribution.
Because a lot of these battles happen prior to the a la carte Disney Pluses, the expansion of Netflix. Everybody was going for that Netflix concept because they saw how much Netflix was making, and a king alone on a hill, basically, with no competitors, basically. And then Paramount Plus happened, Disney Plus, all these other a la carte things. And now that that's around, it's getting a little bit easier because my speculation is a lot of these studios just saw YouTube as a free distribution site, and that's what they hated the most. And reaction videos, unfortunately, were lumped into a lot of that as well. You're just illegally distributing said content. I'm like, well, some people might be uploading the entire episodes. I'm actually cutting things out and giving snippets and like that. And to this day, there's still kind of that unspoken rule of like, you should keep it short. It should be barely recognizable what scene you're reacting to, as to essentially get people to tune in to the actual show.
And you mentioned in Japan, most of the people you asked to that could have gone to watch a movie like this Spider-Man movie in the cinema actually said, nah, I'll just download it.
Yeah.
Why are people not going to the cinema again anymore in Japan?
Loaded question on that one. I personally think it's inconvenience for most people. I would even argue that stands the same in America. It's just that Americans are obsessed with the theater. I mean, I was born in Hollywood, so I know how that works. That's our livelihood, right? That's just, go to the weekend, go to the theater, check out a movie, right? Drive-ins, things like that. Japan, it's a whole ordeal. I got to take 2 trains just to go to my local cinema. And, I need to make sure I reserve the ticket. It's a whole ordeal. And then it's not as simple as just, driving back home after the movie. You got to get on the train, rush hour, all that stuff. It's kind of annoying. Secondly, the price. I want to say it's expensive. And in some form or fashion it is, but when I actually compare the prices back home to America, it's roughly about the same. Roughly. Next part is availability of actually finding said movies in English subtitles. In Japanese subtitles, but English voices like that. Not everybody really has time to kind of search around and find when they're playing that. A lot of people don't know how to navigate those websites and things like that. So I think there's a few different things, but ultimately I just think it comes down to people don't respect the cinema and the content enough to actually give money. They're under this mystery. They're under this illusion that every project that comes out is funded by billion-dollar corporations that will never lose money, when the fact of the matter is they're all kind of losing money, especially post-pandemic. Disney put up their numbers and they've been losing money. yes, so sad, too bad. And you know, a lot of people are just like, well, okay, whatever, who cares? They're still making a lot. They're making more money than I am. I'm like, yeah, but you're not making movies, so you know.